Social distancing, shelter at home. I know. Let's bake some bread. But not just any old bread. A really good bread with a nice crusty, chewy crust and a marvelous yeasty flavor. Oh, and it's got to be trivially easy to make also. This is my take on the New York no-knead bread. You're going to need some flour, some salt, a package of yeast, and a beer. I also like to add some flaxseed. It adds a little something extra to chew on in the bread, kind of like sesame seeds or something like that. You can get them at Whole Foods or your local health food store. So, first we're going to need 3 cups of flour. Of course, measurement's critical. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good with that. 1 package of yeast. 2 teaspoons of salt. I'm going to stir all that together. Add the flaxseed. Then we're going to add the beer. Just use a regular lager beer. You don't want to use anything with a real strong flavor like a stout. And of course you don't want to use a light beer. All the beer goes in. Now, if you've ever made bread before, you're going to look at this and you're going to say, this is just all wrong. But I want you to bear with me and you'll get a great result. So we're going to stir this up and it's going to make this nasty looking, too wet dough that doesn't look like it's going to make bread at all. Okay, and here's the magic. We're going to leave this to rise for 18 to 24 hours. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, and I'll just leave it in the kitchen here at about 70 degrees until it's all risen, and we'll come back tomorrow. This is what it looks like, all covered up with saran wrap. Okay, it's been about 18 hours, and you can see that the bread has tripled, quadrupled in size. It looks all wet and sticky and looks like a real mess. That's okay, that's the way it's supposed to look. You need a pan to bake this stuff in. It needs to be something with a good fitting lid. This is probably a 4-quart saucepan or so. Something like this, Dutch oven. Anything with a good lid is going to work. But something about in this size roughly, a little bigger, whatever. And you're going to need a bowl that's about the same size as your pan, because we've got a second rise to go here. So we're going to line this bowl with some parchment paper. And this is just going to make the bread easy to handle once we're ready to transfer it to the hot pan, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, even though they call this New York no-knead bread, there is a little bit of kneading that is required, but it is absolutely minimum. And so, I've got one of these little plastic scraper things. I'm gonna knead the bread. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 seconds worth of kneading. That's all it takes. I'm going to scoop this out, drop into the pan there. Recover it with a saran wrap. We're going to let this rise now. Probably take it about 4 hours before it's going to be ready to bake. So we'll come back at that point and I'll show you how to bake it. It's been about 4 hours and the bread is rising, so it's time to get the oven ready. You want to set your oven to bake at 500 degrees. You're going to take your pan and set it in the oven, the rack sort of in the middle. Okay, our oven's up to temperature and the pot inside the oven is really, really hot, so this is the tricky part. Got to get the pot out of the oven. Remember that it's hotter than the hinges of hell. Take the lid off carefully, and now we're going to use the parchment paper to transfer the bread into the pot. Carefully, don't burn yourself. Lid goes back on, goes back into the oven. At this point, you want to turn the oven down to 450 degrees. And we're going to leave it there for 20 minutes. Okay, it's been 20 minutes, and here's the next tricky part. You've got to reach in and get the lid off of the pot. Now it goes 20 more minutes, and the bread should be ready. Be careful, that lid's really hot. Okay, it's been an additional 20 minutes. Time for the bread to come out of the oven. Be careful, it's still plenty hot. As you can see, it's all nice and cooked up. Take the parchment paper off and let it cool. In a few moments, we'll be back for a nice slice. And that's it. It's done. Let's see if we can get a nice slice here. Nice thick slice. Yeah. It's got this great chewy, crispy crust and a wonderful yeasty interior. Cheers, everybody.